What's up, family? We back with another one at Block News TV. And you know, we back at it again for another part of this Uvalde shooting. So I'm gonna play a quick clip of another video before I get to the one I'm actually gonna do. Hold on, now listen to this real quick, family.
Several law enforcement that engaged the suspect, but he was able to make entry into the school where he did go into several classrooms, and unfortunately he did fire his firearm.
Texas State Senator Roland Gutierrez says the shooter, quote, had no problem legally purchasing the assault-style rifles used in the massacre.
It went to high school here.
So you see that, family? So right there, they're showing you
on his 18th birthday,
two guns, two rifles, right? So this newscast and many other ones that we've already seen, correct? They've said that they've had two rifles, so he went up in there with two guns. But now listen to this one, family. Listen to this one. Hold on.
Joining us is Lieutenant Chris Oliveras. He's a spokesperson with the Texas Department of Public Safety, South Texas region. Lieutenant, I just want to start with you here. Give us the latest on the state of the investigation in terms of the number of victims and the latest we know.
Right, so the latest updates that we have is 19 children are deceased, as well as 2 adults, 2 of those being teachers, for a total of 21 victims.
They're keeping that one now.
We are still processing the scene at the school with our Texas Rangers, as well as working with federal partners, local law enforcement. We do know right now that all the victims have been removed from the school. All the families have been notified as well.
All the victims have been removed. All the families have been notified. So all the victims have been identified.
That's correct.
Okay, they was getting somewhere.
How difficult has that been for a lot of what I want for me, the families, and how difficult that must be for them. And your officers have been doing a lot of the notifications, I assume. Right. How has that been going?
You know, I can tell you, it's hard to put into words. As a parent myself, to even think of what these families are going through right now, and not only the families, but the entire community here in Uvalde. But yes, we are working closely with the local law enforcement here, with school officials trying to identify, and of course we made those identifications during the night. And right now we're trying to provide further closure for the families by having a thorough investigation, trying to exactly identify what caused this mass shooting, what triggered this.
So he said that he's trying to get closure with the family by finding out what caused it. First of all, finding out what caused the 18-year-old to run inside of an elementary school is not closure. That's not closure at all. Secondly, according to the other news report that I did a video on, it claimed that the reason why he did it was because he's arguing with his grandmother about not graduating high school. But it's come to find out that wasn't in the car. Supposedly that was inside the home they was arguing. So also makes another question. So if that was inside the home that they was arguing, then once again, if that guy that said that he knew the grandmother through family connections, why would he say that? Why would he not say he's a neighbor? Because if he's hearing what's going on inside their home, he's hearing it, then that means he's obviously a neighbor. So something, like I said, family man, just there's something not right about the way they're bringing this whole story out. But let's continue.
Trying to identify right now.
Do you have a sense of how many people were wounded here and what their condition may be at this hour?
So I don't have an exact number. I do know there's multiple children that were inside that classroom that were wounded as well, but I don't have the exact number at this time right now.
Lieutenant, there's a lot of questions about the timeline.
Inside that classroom.
It starts with the grandmother
that were wounded as well. Just real quick, family. I have assault rifles. We heard the other news, and other news reporters also report that it was 2. But you're gonna hear what this guy says later. But nonetheless, I have an assault rifle inside of a classroom. Nobody's getting injured. It's nothing but death, especially talking about little children. What is he shooting little children in the legs and the feet now?
Right, so the initial incident was a domestic disturbance involving the shooter with his grandmother, in which the shooter actually shot his own grandmother. From that point, he fled the scene in a vehicle.
You hear that? You hear that? So what, he shoot his grandmother with one of the assault rifles? So he had already let off a few bullets. How many times did he shoot the grandmother? They're not even telling us that. How many shots was rung off at his grandmother, and where did he shoot his grandmother at? We don't know. They're not telling us. Just saying, family, man. This
crashed nearby the school, and then they saw a individual armed with a weapon going inside the school.
Who's they?
Local law enforcement. They received a call. They received a call that the vehicle crashed.
First, he just said that they seen a guy going inside the school with a assault rifle. Then all of a sudden, the news reporter asked him, well, who is they? And then the officer's like, oh no, well, the officers, they got a call about it. Maybe, hey, get your story straight. Get your story straight.
Long rifle making its way into the school, and that's when local law enforcement responded on scene.
Local law enforcement
Local law
enforcement
enforcement
the school.
was there like, boom! Man, this must be a real small town. Woo!
So we had local law enforcement from Uvalde Police Department, one of the school police officers, as well as state troopers that arrived on scene. They were the initial officers on scene. They heard the gunfire. They were met with gunfire as they encountered this gunman.
Oh boy, this 18-year-old showed y'all police up. If this is true, this 18-year-old showed you police officers up, man. He showed you up. This little 18-year-old, man, hey, this dude must have really been trained already somehow. Somehow. Man, either he... See, what you doing right now, Sergeant or Lieutenant, what you're doing right now is you're making your police department look very, very weak. To tell me this little 18-year-old showed your officers up outside to the point where he was able to enter inside the school. I think y'all need better training over there in y'all police department.
Police officers, non-life-threatening injuries, they are stable.
Hold on. Let me stop. Then he shot 2 of your officers. I'm not even trying to laugh at the officers who got shot. I'm laughing at the fact that this 18-year-old shot 2 of your officers and entered inside the freaking thing after your officers already had knowledge of an active shooter, or at least a guy running inside elementary school with a rifle. So it's not like he just jumped out of nowhere, just came up on him. That I can understand it. They already know about this, and he's still able to shoot 2 of you guys, man. Woo!
At that point, they were at a disadvantage because the gunman...
Damn! See, he needs to stop. Now he's talking about the officers was at a disadvantage. Officers, as plural. Because he talked about it being a school cop there. He said the local police. Then he said what he said. I don't remember if he said a sheriff or some. It was some other type of police officer that was there as well. This one teenager, 18 years old, not even fresh out of high school just yet, had y'all at a disadvantage. Whoa! So I'm not going to say all that. Let's just continue.
Classroom, barricaded himself inside that classroom, and then that's when he just started shooting children and the teachers that we talked about, 2 teachers that were killed inside that classroom.
Is it a 911?
So, first of all, they had 2 teachers inside the classroom, which is crazy. This is not trying to be funny at all. It's a special ed classroom. Why you have 2 teachers in the classroom? What grade is this? What I want to know. Another thing is, forget that. So the guy that they have knowledge about, mind you, is then pop that. First of all, the cops got there like that, right? Because they got the freeze ever gets out the school. So I don't know how in the world somebody's able to call that quick to 911 to the operator, and operator be able to get the dispatch the police out and them get there that fast off of somebody's phone call, right? And then they get there like this, right? Just like they so the police officers teleported to the elementary school, okay? They teleported there, right? Then after they teleported there, they see the active shooter. The active shooter is a bad man. He's bad. He put these officers at a disadvantage and shot 2 of them. Lucky they didn't lose their lives, right? Because he popped 2 of them and had them at a disadvantage. Listen, this 18-year-old had them at so much of a disadvantage that he was able to do that, enter inside the school, have enough time to barricade yourself. That means, first of all, little school desks aren't really that heavy like that. You know, on top of that, it takes time to run inside the classroom and start putting desks and all that type of stuff on a freaking thing to barricade to where officers cannot get inside the classroom, right? For them not even be able to do that, right? And then, so you're inside the classroom now, and you're just shooting students and teachers. And somehow you injure someone, but you don't know how many are injured. But you don't know how many students are injured, but you know how many of them are dead. With the 2 teachers that was in the classroom, at one point it was 3, but now it's 2. Let's go.
Call. Well, what is the call?
So when they received the call,
was it a 911
right.
call?
So it was a call that was called into the police.
How did they get there that
regarding a
fast?
crashed vehicle.
A 911 call, or someone actually called?
No, a 911 call.
Okay.
Right. So they received that call. That was the initial call. That's when law enforcement responded to the scene.
Was there a chase?
They
Were
teleported to the
chasing him?
scene.
No, there was reports of that. That's not confirmed. There was no chase involved whatsoever. The initial call, as I mentioned, was.
This lieutenant just had the nerve to say there was no chase at all. This lieutenant said there's no chase at all. So you mean to tell me, so this 18-year-old once again, that you already knew he was an active shooter, he running up, according to some other news sources, with 2 assault rifles, busting at your cops, shot 2 of them, had them at a disadvantage, ran inside the school, was able to barricade himself inside that classroom. Why was he able to barricade himself inside that classroom? Oh, because the officers didn't chase him. So, in hindsight, it will be the officers' fault that these children are dead. It will be the officers' fault that these 2 teachers are dead. Because these officers were not doing their job. These officers were not training. Then we got to get deeper than the officers. Now we got to be the police academy. Because who trained these guys? Who told these guys you are now a trained officer, professional, to go out here and handle this? And this is what's wrong with the police department now. This is why you got innocent black men getting shot down because they scared. And they don't really know what to do. Because they're untrained, allegedly. But we finna get off that because there's more on this story. And we're going to get all this story. Let's go.
That the vehicle crashed near the school, that there was an individual armed with a weapon going inside the school. But there was no chase at all whatsoever with law enforcement.
No chase.
That he was driving to the school, that the school was a target.
Well, we're trying to determine that. That's why we're working with FBI right now. How to kind of look back to see if there was any indicators, any red flags, looking at social media. What we do know about the shooter is that he is a resident here in Uvalde, did attend one of the local high schools, lived with his grandparents, was unemployed, no friends, no girlfriend that we can identify right now at this time.
He was unemployed. He didn't have a job. So how in the world was he had no job, 18 years old? How in the world did he buy these assault rifles? Was his grandparents? Do we need to question the grandmother that was allegedly shot? Allegedly? I'm saying allegedly. That was allegedly shot? Does she need to be questioned? How does H.O. get these assault rifles like that? Who bought them for him? But it's going to get deeper, family. It's going to get a little bit deeper. We're not done yet. Or we not done.
No criminal history, no gang affiliation as well. So
no criminal history, no gang affiliation, no friends. You know what's so important about him having no friends and all that? Because can't nobody speak on his behalf. Can't nobody be like, oh, I know him. Oh, yeah, he's been feel like can't nobody say nothing at all. He has no friends. He has no girlfriend. We have nobody to talk to but his alleged grandmother that nobody's seen that was dead, but now she's living. She's not talking. He just said his grandparents. The lieutenant just messed up and said the grandparents. So where's the grandfather at? Did you say grandparents? Why are you not talking to the grandfather? Where's the grandfather at? His grandfather, can he speak on the behalf? Can he say, well, he's been having problems before them? That's what family, these stories here, man. If children really got shot, then there's something else behind this story. Because the news is so slipping. Oh, they slipping. Oh, they slipping bad.
Exactly what triggered this? What caused this 18-year-old?
What triggered it? He wouldn't graduate from high school, from what I heard.
Tight-knit community here in Uvalde, Texas.
From what I heard, because he wouldn't graduate in high school, but he ain't had no friends. Maybe because he couldn't graduate high school, he ain't had no friends. He ain't had no girlfriend. That'd be why he did it. But he somehow had the money to buy 2 assault rifles with bullets. Let's go.
Crashes into this ditch.
Right.
And that's right here.
Right.
Does that seem to happen by accident, or was that like him stopping? Like, it just seems it was very abrupt and sudden.
Right.
When that occurs.
Right. It's a very erratic situation, right? Trying to determine exactly what caused him to crash, because we do know that he crashed into a fence, ended up crashing into a ditch in which the vehicle was left behind, and then he ran inside the school. So trying to determine exactly what caused.
Yeah, that's crazy. So you drive into a ditch. So you shoot your grandmother. You don't have a job, so either she bought you the car just like she bought you the guns, or now you couldn't have bought the car yourself because you don't have no job, you had no money. So your grandmother and your grandfather they're not talking about because he just said grandparents plural. I listen, right? So your grandparents bought you the rifles, and either that was your car that you drove off in, or you stole one of your grandparents' car, and you drove it, and then he crashed into a ditch, and then got out the ditch, running with an assault rifle. Some people see him running to the school with the assault rifle. So they call 911 to call the police, and then the police department, they teleport to the elementary school, and they see the shooter. The shooter sees them. Hold on 1 second, family, 1 second. Then the shooter sees them, and then what does the shooter do? He runs off into he shoots at the 2 officers, boom, boom, hits the 2 officers, puts them at a disadvantage, goes inside the school, is able to barricade himself inside of whatever classroom he decided to run inside of, because the officers was not chasing him at all.
Erratic behavior as far as him to crash that vehicle.
Back to the timeline. So interacts with the police, shoots 2 of the police, non-fatal injuries, goes into the school, barricades himself in a classroom, you say.
Wow.
What more details can you give me about that moment inside, which I presume is the first classroom he went into?
Right, so of course the initial group of officers that were on scene, at that point they were at a point of disadvantage because the shooter was able to barricade himself inside that classroom. There was not sufficient manpower at that time, and their primary focus was to preserve any further loss of life. So they started breaking windows around the school and trying to rescue, evacuate children and teachers.
So as you have this active shooter allegedly sitting inside of the classroom, shooting children and stuff, y'all are busting. Why these officers have to bust windows if this is okay? The shooter inside of one classroom that the officers are afraid to go inside that classroom because he already had the other officers at a disadvantage. You know what I'm saying? They was already at a disadvantage, so they know, man, I'm not about to go inside that classroom. You feel me? Dude up in there, man. He done shot 2 of these officers. He done had y'all at disadvantage. He done went in. Hey, but so let's get the rest of these children out, so at least these other ones don't die, because the other ones, man, they got to fend for themselves. You feel me? Which is messed up. This really is a true story. Children really did die. This is messed up, right? So that happens, right? And then, so basically, so these officers be like, we afraid we're not finna go inside that classroom. So let's start busting. Matter of fact, damn, go inside the classroom. Damn that. We ain't entering the school. We not finna go through them front doors. He's inside of one classroom, but we ain't going inside them doors. We finna bust windows outside and get these students up out of here. Bro, that's the scariest joke I ever heard in my life. That's the scariest joke I heard in my life. Lieutenant, I don't care if they are paying you money. Why would you tell that story? You make your whole police department look like trash. You like you have no business in your position. They need to get you off the police force ASAP. ASAP like Rocky.
While that was going on, at that point,
get him with some RICO charges.
The team arrived, comprised of federal officers, local police officers as well. They made forcible entry into that classroom. One of those officers was met with gunfire. He was shot. Life-threatening injury.
Then another officer is in the classroom, and this 18-year-old was cold. This is why they.
At that point, they're able to shoot and kill the shooter.
At that point, they was able to shoot and kill the shooter. Let me tell you something, family. What's so wrong with that little part right there that you just said is that they had another point where he was apprehended at one point in time. Well, he was apprehended. He wasn't even dead. So if he was apprehended, you had to shoot him when he was apprehended. Why are you now switching the story to, oh no, Bill, they shot him at that point when the officer got shot entering the classroom, because this was a bad 18-year-old right here, man. This was a bad 18-year-old, man. Like this dude here. I don't know why he didn't just go to the military, but let's get on with it.
Injuries and fatalities took place in one classroom?
That's correct.
So it was one classroom that the shooter barricaded himself in, and that's where all the deceased wounded are.
Right, so it was a classroom setting. He was able to make entry into.
So it was one classroom that he entered in, they said, right? On other news reports, they said that the students that got shot, right, they were between the ages of 8 to 10. Got inside of one classroom. So you mean to tell me in this elementary school, unless it's a small town that got a few hundred people, but they have a high school too, so it can't be like that, right? So you mean to tell me that this classroom had students between 8 to 10 years old? What grade was this? were these third graders that should have been maybe 9 years old, maybe 8, but they were between the ages of 9 to 11. Like that just doesn't. There's some kids, students in that classroom that definitely were feeling that was held back. Most definitely.
Barricaded himself by locking the door and just started shooting children and the 2 teachers that were inside.
Did he just say he barricaded himself by locking the door? So you mean to tell me the police be kicking out people's doors all the time, but somehow when we get to the school, a guy's able to lock the door, and we call that barricade now, and we can't get inside of it. Matter of fact, of course they couldn't get inside of it. They didn't go inside the school. They're outside the school breaking windows.
Just goes to show you complete evil.
It goes to show you how unprepared you guys are and how untrained you are.
How long was he in that classroom?
So again, we're trying to determine all those timelines from the time the initial event took place. From
Oh, so y'all have no idea, huh?
From the point that he made it to the school, and also how long was he in that school. So we're trying to talk to witnesses, anybody that was involved.
There's no camera footage. Nobody has camera footage of this. Out of all the camera footage that we get of everything that happens, nobody be having camera footage of these mass shootings except for the one in Buffalo, but they got rid of that real quick. But there's no camera footage at all. Something ain't right.
Or in that school at the time that was present, also looking for surveillance cameras, talking to neighbors, trying to put all this together to have
where the cameras at?
Timeline with accurate information.
The tactical vest or it wasn't exactly a bulletproof vest, right? It was a plate or something. It wasn't. Can you just talk about that?
Right. So initially, there was reports, and obviously I had mentioned as well that there was some type of ballistic armor, but reports that I got today, updated reports, is that it was a tactical vest carrier with no ballistic panels.
So, not only this young 18-year-old with no job, no friends, no nothing, have 2 assault rifles. He also had tactical vests. First of all, where he get this tactical vest from? And who bought it for him? His grandparents? His grandmother he shot? This is crazy right here, family. Crazy how they can sit up over here with this live story, and some people probably really did lose their lives. And they sitting here with this live story, trying to feed it to people. But see, a person like me can mess with Malak News TV, because I'm going to point them straight out. This right here doesn't make sense none at all. This little bit. So you already solved the freaking case of why he went and did what he did. He went there to go shoot up elementary school, if what you're saying is true. Because nobody walks around, hops in their car with 2 assault rifles and tactical vests just to roll around the streets, and ain't got no kind of beef or nothing. Nobody's out to kill him. And if he's 18 years old on top of that, and he's not gang affiliated or none of this type of stuff, right? He don't even have a history of kids picking on him. None of that. But you run around with 2 assault rifles and a tactical vest. Sounds like to me that you've been planning on doing something. And it sounds like to me that you've been aiming at elementary school. Why? I don't know. We can't tell him why now. Why? Because he's dead now. First he was alive, but now he's dead. Just like his grandmother was dead, now she's alive. Golly, man. I tell you, I got to get y'all story straight.
Typically, those type of carriers are used by tactical teams, SWAT
sure
teams,
is.
where they can place magazines, extra ammunition inside those carriers and be able to move in a tactical formation.
So come on, so, and why does he have this?
We do not know. There's no ballistic panels that were inside that carrier, but again, goes to show you again what were the intents behind that to have that type of
armor,
right? As far as the tactical vest and also the rifle that was used.
How much ammunition did he have on it?
Again, still trying to put all those pieces together. He had numerous.
How did y'all kill this man? Y'all know where his car is at in the ditch. But you don't know how much ammunition he had on. But there's a whole lot of stuff you're still trying to figure out that you should already know. But let's go, man. Here's the problem. They ain't told you what to say yet.
Ammunition with him. And again, trying to determine exactly, working with ATF, how he was able to obtain this weapon, when it was purchased, also the ammo as well. So trying to
how did he purchase it?
High capacity magazines? I mean, how many?
That we have not confirmed that yet. But he was in possession of multiple magazines with multiple.
Well, your police department trash.
Get 2 rifles?
As of right now, we confirm 1 rifle that he was in possession of when he made entry to that school.
All of a sudden, it's 1 rifle now. How was all the other news reports saying it was 2 rifles? Now we're going to. You know why it has to go from 2 to 1? Because somebody sat back and thought about it. Just like the other video when I was saying you run inside there with 2, you can't do that. Somebody thought about that. Was like, you can't have 2 rifles. Say he had 1. He only had 1. Now just ignore that. Never forget that he only had 1. Man, y'all think y'all slick, man. And it's really messed up too, because some children really died up in there, man. Y'all really messed up, man. And y'all know why y'all messed up.
Also working with ATF trying to determine exactly what type of rifle and the capacity.
Was there a rifle in the car?
And he's asking what type of rifle, like we didn't see a picture of the 2 rifles. And I'm being feminine, promise, but I'm only laughing at the fact of how sloppy, how much they trying to lie to us in our face. And realistically, through this whole story, I'm hoping nobody really died, because I don't really believe this. But the sad part about it is children probably really did die in this incident. There's probably some children who really did die in this BS that they got going on.
So that has not been confirmed yet. Of course, as I'm receiving updates, I'll continue to provide you guys with updates. But as of right now, the information I can confirm is that he was in possession with 1 rifle in that school.
The tactical team that came, where did they come from, and how long did it take for them to make entry?
It was a local team. Some of those were actually off-duty Border Patrol agents as well. It's a comprised team of federal agents, local law enforcement. They all responded to the scene. They were able to make forcible entry. As far as timeline, the response, I do not have that information right now.
Because it just
they reacted in a moment's
You don't
notice.
got a lot of
It just seems
information.
that he was in there for so long in that classroom, and that the officers who were
Come
initially
on.
on scene
Come
couldn't
on.
do anything.
Well, you also got to
He's exposing them.
have someone with this intent to just kill anybody, have no regard for human life, and also with a rifle, he can kill numerous people in a matter of seconds. So those officers were able to respond at a moment's notice, and there could have been further loss of life if those initial officers weren't on scene to break those windows and rescue any other children and teachers that were inside the classroom.
How did ultimately law enforcement get inside?
And once again, if there's any people that done it, I'm not laughing at that at all. I don't want nobody to get my message
Those
twisted.
initial officers weren't able to make entry because they were at a point of disadvantage with the shooter. So they went around.
So the officers were not able to enter the elementary school because they was at a disadvantage from an 18-year-old. Hold on. An untrained, obviously he had to be trained. So a very well trained 18-year-old that's barricaded inside of a classroom. And you still at a disadvantage and you have more numbers. And all your guys are trained.
Windows.
I'm having fun with this junk. Unless people lost their lives, I'm like that.
They were able to set a perimeter until that tactical team arrived, and they were able to make entry into that classroom.
Through the door, through the windows.
They went to the actual same way that actual.
Where the broken windows at?
They were able to make forcible entry.
I know I don't see none up front. No broken windows up there.
To that classroom.
And were there still students in that classroom?
Yeah, so those are some of the
Look how he's looking at him.
Right now, I don't have
Got the black shirt. He don't believe
children, but of course, 19 children were deceased from that classroom as well as 2 teachers.
Yeah, you can clearly see that the guy right there in the black shirt, he's not buying it. He's not believing that lieutenant and his BS. Or if he is believing it, he's sticking his head like, why? The stuff you're saying doesn't sound right. How in the world are your officers at a disadvantage from an 18-year-old that really technically should be untrained because he's still in high school, and he's able to have your officers shoot 2 officers, enter inside the school, barricade himself. You guys forget all that. He had an advantage. No, your officers were afraid to enter inside the high school or the elementary school. So they run their little scary behinds around the school, busting windows, while he could have aired out that whole classroom, thus ran outside that classroom, went in other classrooms, however many bullets he had or whatever, and could have just started airing out stuff and killed way more children, allegedly, if this was real. And all your officers would have done was nothing but punked out. Let me tell you something, fam, man. Hey, I'm going to stay on this story. The more I hear about it, the more if I see more different clues in the story, if I see the story to come together a little bit more to where things become more clear, I'm going to give it to you. If things start to get more left field and shifting, I'm going to give it to you. You feel me, family? So just stay locked in with me. Like I said, man, hit that subscribe button, that like button, man. Comment. Y'all need to comment on this one. You know, on all these ones I'm doing right now. Real talk, man. And for always, hey, peace and blessings, one love, shalom. Until next time, I'm gone.